Okay, my name's Louie Longhi, and a little bit of my background is I've been teaching for 30 years. I've taught at a few different schools. I've been here at Triton for my second year. And what we're going to get into today is interactive and engaging labs and how to keep the students engaged while you're doing labs. And sometimes we don't always have maybe enough labs for everybody. So we're going to how to deal with that. And then we're also going to deal with if they finish one lab, how can I keep them busy and not get destructive?
My name is Todd Nicklewicz. I'm also automotive instructor. I've been here, this is my 5th semester as full-time faculty. I'm actually an alumni of Triton. I graduated back in '97 from the program that I teach now, the ASEP program. And like I said, we're just going to talk about what to do with labs. Some students are more advanced than others. Sometimes what you expect to take the students an hour takes them 10 minutes. And other times what you expect them to take an hour, 3 hours later, they're still working on it because just different skill levels and stuff like that. And what do you do with the other students that are done in 10 minutes? Always got to have something else in the background for them to do, so they're not just standing there. So, would you like to introduce yourself? I haven't met you.
Cindy Dawson, and I teach with adult education, and right now I'm teaching ESL.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And I've been at Triton now a year and a half.
Okay.
Okay, so you're new.
Do you do any type of lab activities with them, or
no?
Is it
So
more...
I guess when you say lab, I would say like learning activities.
Okay.
So but it's the same challenge in the classroom when there are activities, or projects that they're individually or working on as a partner, where some do finish quicker than others, and then we have that lag time. And I don't want to rush the ones that need a little more time because they're learning English as a second language.
Sure.
So
sure.
again, it depends on their comprehension, their skill level, and all that.
Yeah, so like getting back to the skill level, so the programs we both teach are cohorts. This semester, because the numbers are a little bit low in our cohorts, they put some general program students in the classes, which makes it lab even a bigger challenge because the cohorts, the students, they come to Triton in the afternoon, they work at a dealership in the morning. So they're around cars every single day. They're working on cars. Just pulling the car onto the rack, lifting the car takes them 2 or 3 minutes. When we have general program students that don't work at a dealership or don't work at in the industry, and they're just here to learn about automotive, they don't pull that car on the rack every day. They may only do it once a week or once every other week. So just racking the car, pulling the car on the rack could take them an hour. While the other students, they do it every day. They're advanced level, they're more advanced, trying to get their lab going. Like I said, they go through it pretty quick. General program students takes a little bit longer. So always having something in the back pocket, as I call it.
Okay, so the different topics we're going to go over today is lab times. We've been talking about how to deal with that. Student rapport, creating an environment, okay, basically for learning, engagement strategies, how to engage the students different ways, and benefits. Some of the benefits with the way our classes are, and we'll go over some of that. Go ahead.
So, like I said, we're fortunate enough that we have very large space to actually have cars pulled in the building. We have, I think the whole program has 75
Yeah,
cars.
probably somewhere in that area.
So we have a good selection of stuff. A lot of times, like with my labs, I like to do the same lab on a different car. So every student will be doing the same thing, but on a different car, a different manufacturer. Whole same process, but completely different. So I like to have them run through it, figure out, diagnose, do the lab, and then do the lab again on a different car. So they have an idea of what they're doing because they just did it, but now it's a different car, same process, but completely different.
Right. A big thing with us and with the cars and stuff is repetition. So that they don't just do it once and then they forget what they're doing. We want them to do it multiple times if we can, and time permitting. But the more they do it, again, what's very fortunate is all of our students in the Honda and the GM program all have internships. So they're all working at the same time. So you see the difference in the advancement because what we're teaching them, they can kind of go practice at work, where the other ones are just to do it at home. People that are learning and stuff, they may not do it again till next course, you know, so they don't get their hands in as much. So we try to do as much repetition in class that we can.
So then it's the same, you know, the transfer over for learning ESL, English as a second language, a lot of the same ideas behind learning. So repetition is very important. So to change it up is important because of the different skill levels. And again, the community of students, some are already working, and so they're having the opportunity to practice their language skills and speaking skills, whereas others, again, are at home and they're just coming the 2 nights a week and not really, you know.
Right, and depending what family members are speaking at home,
right.
they may not be speaking a lot, multiple
Right.
language. Right. The other thing that I'll do though too is I'll watch the students, and we know the ones, you know, they're doing better, or if they have the job, I'll team up them with somebody else maybe that's struggling. And sometimes that student may have a way to approach the subject to that student and it clicks differently. So anytime I can come up with any different ideas to adjust or to present things in multiple ways, somebody may not be learning this way, but maybe if they see it this way, it suddenly clicks. So you try to come up with many multiple, and I use the students to teach other students. I mean, it helps them. It shows the other students that, hey, he's been here in this class with me just as long and he's getting it. So maybe there's something I'm not doing right that can make me understand it better. Yeah. Big thing, plan multiple labs ahead. Never run out of material. Always have something.
Yes.
Even if it's what you have planned for next week,
yeah.
If that group that's advanced,
yeah.
Let's get them on that, and then we can come up with something for them next week that's going to be even more difficult for them. Yeah. Or do the ones that are even a struggle for the instructors to figure out.
Or I'll go backwards sometimes.
Yeah.
Something that they did that maybe they didn't, you don't feel they quite did it as good as they could have. Have them do it again.
Correct. And like, I like to watch them in lab, and if they struggle and they start asking questions, I don't like giving them the answer. I like answering their question with another question to make them really think about what they're doing, because automotive field, you know, here's your car, here's the problem, figure it out, you know. And like I said, I with my past, there's times that it takes you forever to figure it out. So you have to think about really what you're doing. Think about starting all over, going back to step one. The answer with our service manuals and that, 99% of the time, the service manual will get you to where you need to be, but you need to follow it properly. So a lot of people like to read over step one, and step one a lot of times gives them the answer, but they read over it because it can't be step one is the problem.
It's the why question. Yeah, to have everybody answer the why,
you know?
so you can get to the how.
Yeah, Yeah.
Right. And again, I've been doing this a long time and I've seen the change in students. The students now want that silver bullet that's going to fix it instantly. They don't want to have to look things up and do things. They will sooner go on Google and try to find, not knowing who they're getting this information from. Some of it might be right.
Or if it's even automotive related.
Exactly.
Day one, I tell my class, the question that's going to get you in trouble is this chapter, this question for your homework. They go, because SCR in diesel stands for something completely different than when you Google it. When you Google it, it talks about some kind of silicon resistor, which is used in a nuclear power plant. That's the number one thing on Google that pops up. And every semester I have 2 or 3 students still do it. Even though I told them the exact question, that doesn't even get them in trouble.
Right. Unfortunately, I've embraced the phones a little bit. There are certain things that the phone helps with when they're out there. They can take pictures of things before they take it apart.
Correct.
So it helps them remember how to put it together. To try and get rid of their phone, I look at it as almost taking the alcohol away from an alcoholic. It gets that crazy. They'll go nuts. Even pretty much, unfortunately, I'm attached to my phone with all the information and stuff you do nowadays. It's something hard to just eliminate, but it's the purpose that they use it for.
And the phone, like the Google and all that, it is very helpful, but you need to actually understand what you're reading.
Right.
Because just because you Google it doesn't mean you're getting the answer you're looking for. You know, the World Wide Web is truly the World Wide Web. And if you don't understand what you're talking about and you're just picking the first thing that it talks about and assuming that it's correct, it doesn't work like that. Not a month.
Right, no, I agree. One thing I've embraced a little bit, learning slowly about it, is AI. There's been times I'm sitting in class, we'll be having a conversation and talking about something, and I'm like, I don't know, you know. So I said, you know what? Let's look it up. And we go to AI and we type it up. And then I said, see, there is times that it can help you and maybe help you understand it. Especially, I like that because you can put it at different education levels. So you can put it maybe at a lower level that they understand it more and they could slowly increase. But I'm not a big proponent of just going out there and searching aimlessly. Because then again, you don't know what kind of answers you get. Even though with AI, you don't always get the right answer either.
Right, it depends how you input a question.
Correct.
I'm just learning a little bit about it now. I want to implement it for my students.
Does AI work with ESL then?
I haven't tried it yet.
Because,
So,
like, I mean, if they can write it in their native language and translate it to English, is it?
Well, I don't want it to become an obstacle in their learning. So that's why I want to practice it a little bit more to see where I would use it in the classroom.
Right. I think us as teachers need to embrace it.
Yeah.
For the simple fact it's there, it's staying, it's not going away, and there's a lot of usefulness to help us with lesson planning and different things and labs and come up with other ideas maybe we never thought of. So I always look at trying to embrace these new ideas over the years. I mean, when I started with overheads, writing on the papers, and then I went to writing on Blackboard, and slowly, you know, eventually got into PowerPoints and everything else. So things have changed, how the students learn have changed. And if we don't change with it, we're not going to keep them engaged, and they don't want to read books. I mean, let's plain and simple, the fact.
Yeah.
But you got to find ways
to draw them in. Because I still think that there's some good teaching tools, old, if you want to call them older, you know, or from previous times that are can still be engaging for the adult student, because, it's good, they're getting up and walking or using their hands, or, you're incorporating learning that way as well. Just like in the automotive, they're using their tools and getting to the car, that's going to help them make the connection. So the same in the classroom, from what I learned and from what I know and my experience, to collages, or get them up to cut pictures and, make a collage, use the glue, have conversation.
Mhm.
So those tools still work too, along with the technology. I don't want it 100% technology.
I agree with you 100%. I
Right.
tell my students
Because you can't drive a computer.
right. Well, I tell my students we were gonna watch.
What isn't
Virtual.
a Tesla a computer?
Yes,
It's
Doesn't it
basically.
drive itself?
yeah, but it's still a car.
Yeah.
Yeah. I told my students we were gonna watch a DVD, and they're like,
What?
DVD? You still have those?
Yeah.
I mean, and that's where, but old stuff still comes into play. I haven't gotten rid of that, but it's just you got to keep trying
Keep
to
going.
engage them and keep them wanting more. So again, multiple labs, different ideas, different things. Whether it's something they did previously, have them redo it. Maybe they didn't do it, and even if they did okay, they're just going to learn to do it better.
Yeah.
And then if you got those other students, which goes into the next, different lab tasks for different skill levels. I may have a car that's harder to deal with than this one, so I'll give a challenge to my either more experienced or more talented student who's understanding more, and maybe give the easier car to ones that are struggling a little bit, because I don't want to see them fail and get discouraged. So I'd rather find a way to let them succeed, but really not knowing that these guys had a harder one than these guys had.
Yeah.
So you don't really come out and say, oh, well, you get the hard one, you're getting the easy one.
Mhm.
You just kind of give them that and try to get them to succeed, and then maybe later give them the harder one in a second point.
Because they like to look at each other like, well, why'd they get it done so quick?
Mhm.
Yeah.
What are
Yeah.
they doing different than what I'm doing?
Yeah, it does work on their self-esteem. So my higher or more advanced students in the classroom, because there's levels, there's 3, there's top, medium, and lower. I always tell them, okay, so if you're partnering up with someone that, they know right away if their partner's not understanding or a little bit behind, but I want them to explain it in English, not in their home language or native language, because then the building blocks in the brain, the processing and putting all the information together is enlightening them as well as the other student.
Right, okay.
Do you have a challenge with different languages, like teaching?
So it's English, so it doesn't matter what country, there could be
Okay.
multiple countries
Okay,
in the
but
class.
do you still have to communicate with them somehow through their native language?
Sometimes,
Okay,
maybe a little. So then I'll use Translate, or I'll use another student if they're pretty proficient. You're talking about ESL levels 1, 2, 3 so far that I've taught.
okay.
So the proficiency to explain in their own language, but I don't like to do that because their language and their grammar learning is different than English. So then they're going to get all confused.
And that's kind of the same with cars, because GM compared to Honda,
Yeah.
compared to everything, we're still trying to do the same thing,
Right.
but completely different
Exactly.
language, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Structure.
Mhm.
Structure.
Yeah, well, the nice thing is we've always called different things, same part on this GM is called different on a Honda or
Correct.
called different on a Chrysler. But in '96, they went to a central
Mhm.
language almost, where a lot of,
It's still different, but
yeah, there's still a lot, but there's a lot of things that are still the same now, which doesn't get quite as confusing.
Right.
They should do more, but they did a number of computer sensors and different things where they're all somewhat the same, but they only had to do so much
Mhm.
because everybody wants to keep their own proprietary thing.
Right, so with English, you have your outer circle, inner circle, when you're learning, you're getting your certification to TESOL, and we're taught, or I was taught or learned. So it's global Englishes. You know, every country is going to have their own global English. It's not going to be the same as the English here
Okay.
as the English in China, dialects, you know. So each same thing, each
Country's got their
country,
own little difference.
yeah, it's called global Englishes, but there's the outer circle, inner circle. So the outer circle is more like, oh, well, they're not proficient with the English, and so we don't really want to learn from them. And the inner circle is they want to rush maybe here to the United States to learn English because this is the inner circle. This is where it's
Predominantly
Yeah.
English.
Okay.
Okay.
Prepping the students for the lab the day before, it's good to go over, one, the subject matter, so
Yep.
that they know what they're going to be doing and walk them through it and everything. And make sure if they need to bring tools, what they have to have, and different things, so that they're ready for the next day, that they don't come in and say, oh, well, I didn't know I needed my tools.
And even like have them, tell them what car they're working on. You know, just so their mindset is, I'm walking in the lab and this is my car. I know it. I know what I'm going to do to start off with. Kind of makes them more comfortable, ready to go, instead of just standing there like, okay, what do you want me to do?
Mhm.
You know?
Right. When I was working in the field and there was a job I knew I had the next day that was going to be kind of tough or something, or I haven't touched that particular car, I would take the book home with me and I'd study the night before. So I'd have a game plan when I come in, and that's what I try to tell them is, especially nowadays, you spend more time on the computer studying what's going on with it than you might work on the car. And if you don't get that game plan under, you're just going to be totally lost. I like saying it's like a map. You know, I tell my students, okay, I want you to go to Alaska. Which direction do you go? You know, if you don't look up or at least Google on map to find out where you got to go, this map you create so I know what I need to do next or what street I'm going on, which expressway I'm going on.
Read your whole plan.
Same thing. Have a plan ahead of time so you're not just aimlessly searching around. These cars are very, very complicated now. Not as easy as it used to be. You can't work on them at home.
So do you have the student create?
The students will
about
create
the
this, how they're going to come up with this procedure. I mean, all the computers can go in and they can look up, you know, certain step-by-step procedures. But like we said earlier, there's so many times they skip certain steps. They don't want to take it. The other thing is that they have is hyperlinks. So they may be going and it says, okay, remove valve cover, but you got to click on that and it'll give you specific procedures for it. And having done this so many times, we know certain ones that they're going to skip, and we know where they're going to get stuck. And then we'll ask them, well, did you do this, and no, it didn't say it. Well, they didn't bother to look all the way through to find those other procedures.
Or that hyperlink takes them to a step that we're not doing. You know, because there'll be a hyperlink in the hyperlink. And they'll just follow that instead of actually going back to their main page of the process. So it's easy to get confused in there if you don't know your
right. And they
path.
They need to really, that's why I say they need to come up with that little map of how they're going to get there and at least have some idea what they're doing. If not, you may be looking in the trunk and you need to be under the hood, literally. Because stuff is all over, and like I say, right? You know, there's so many different things now.
Extra tire.
Right.
Right. You know, so I emphasize if we give them the information a day ahead of time, maybe do a little bit of research at home, maybe do a little bit extra reading, read over the chapter a second time so that you understand what you're doing. You know, come up with a game plan. Okay. Okay, we're talking magic of cohorts. You might have the same thing with your thing, but with us, like with the Honda students, it's the same students for the whole year together. So
2 years.
2 years.
Well, 2 years. I get them for 1 year, then
Yeah,
they go to
yeah.
somebody else.
But
But they're together for 2 years. So what's nice is they really build camaraderie with each other. And I've seen it so much where, they're even working outside of class together,
Right.
and they really get to know each other. And if someone needs even a ride or something, they'll help each other out.
Yep.
The other thing, when we place them with jobs, like right now, most of all of our students, there's like 2 at each dealer that we have them at. So now they're working together. So it kind of helps each other, because the fear of lifting a brand new car that maybe is being worked on for the first time, it's scary.
Yeah.
It's scary to change the oil and stuff, or not to scratch it. Or
they have their person of comfort to go to talk to. Because like, if I'm going to go to this journeyman, they're going to be like, what do you go to school? You don't know how to do that?
Yeah.
And the person that they're comfortable with, like, hey, can you help me out with this? Or am I doing this right? Now you have 2 people thinking about it instead of 1.
And unfortunately, mechanics like to rib each other.
Yes.
So if they can, you don't want to, if there's a little bit of blood there, the sharks will come crawling,
Like,
And it's just the way
Yeah.
the field is, unfortunately. And it's not meant to be really mean or nothing, but it's just they love that ribbon, The other thing I do with my students is every day when they all first come, because they've all just started, I ask each one, hey, what happened today?
Mm-hmm.
I had one leave a gasket out, and the car left leaked out all the oil. Luckily nothing bad happened. He came back. Another one scratched the car the other day. So they get to hear each other making mistakes. So it's not, I'm the only one that's not doing something
Yes.
wrong,
correct.
And that's part of the learning. It's just,
Right.
it's gonna happen. It's a matter of not doing it a second time.
Right. That
know.
was my communication to them last week's, because we're going into this is the 4th week next week's, but because I'm midterms. So, ask the questions. If you don't know, ask. And you make a mistake, so what? Everybody makes
And
mistakes.
that's,
We'll go back and then let's review it. Everybody write down a mistake, so that let's review each other's mistakes.
Yep.
And then
and
better
I
understanding.
always tell my students, I'm like, if you're going to make a mistake,
Best
here at
place.
school is where you want to make it.
Best place.
Because if you make it at the dealership, you just destroyed a $50,000, $100,000
Yeah.
car, somebody else's car. Here at the school, if you make that mistake, we're learning. As long as we're not destructive and doing it on purpose, we're here to learn.
Right.
This is a learning experience, what not to do.
Right. You got to get them comfortable. The other big thing is when they're in the job, don't lie. If you made a mistake, fess up. And most bosses, unless it's been the same mistake 2 or 3 times,
Yeah.
then you got an issue.
Right.
But you make a mistake, fess up. Most of them have said they have, and the boss says, okay, just, let's learn from it and move on. They're used to that, It takes a long time to develop a mechanic, so they don't want to lose these kids right away. If they can keep them and keep developing them, and they got some ability to do that, they'd rather keep them with a few mistakes than who knows what they'll get next.
Right.
And like I said, I've been there. I made those mistakes. I tell them I made mistakes that you can't even think of yet. You work in the field for 26 years. You work on 20, 30 cars a week for 26 years. Stuff's gonna happen,
Of
Yeah.
course.
And it's like I said, as long as it's not done intentional and it's not done a lot, most bosses will understand. I mean, they know that bad things are gonna happen. I mean, my dealership, we worked on 100 cars a day. Let's just face it, just pure numbers, something bad is gonna happen.
Yeah.
You know?
Well,
And I agree with the cohort idea, because that's how, when I did my master's, so we worked in a cohort, whereas my undergrad it wasn't. So the cohort I loved, right? 2 years, same group of people, and for the same goal. There was a few in my class this semester. There was actually 5 from my class last semester, but only 2 came. The other 3, I'm not sure what happened. But I guess you would have to I don't know, that's probably like an experiment a university or this college would have to be willing to take to run a cohort for ESL and see what the outcome and see what, all the measuring.
Right, I
And all the
mean,
data.
we've said all
See
the
if it was
good
worth it.
things, the bad thing is if you lose enough students,
Yeah.
now is
Yeah.
it worth running the class with only a
Right.
few students? So,
Exactly.
so luckily, we've been fortunate enough to be
That's
teetering right on
Yes.
Okay.
that point. But again, like I say, you're building the relationships, the small talk, where we're talking to each other, letting them know they're all making mistakes, so they're all, learning off of each other because, oh yeah, okay, I know not to do that. Or if they got the two together in a shop, hey, don't forget that, you know what I mean? So it works out pretty good. It really does.
And it builds their confidence too, because like
Yes.
some get stuck at the quick loop rack. Let's just face it.
Yep.
Okay. And when they start talking, others are like, "Oh, I'm there too," Or on the other hand, "Oh, my boss is starting to let me do this." So then they talk to their boss and are like, "Well, can I try this?" So it builds up their esteem and knowing that they're not the only ones. And like I said, it's talking to your boss a lot of times. Like, give me the chance.
Yes.
Give me the chance to prove myself. So, and they get that from the confidence of each other though too. So,
Current events, I keep trying to watch different things. I see different things. I bring it up to the students. The newest thing, I just told them yesterday that China actually produced an electric vehicle that gets up to 600 miles
wow.
a charge,
Wow.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
which I was like, that's amazing. And instead of recharging the battery, which takes a long time, they've designed these cubicle things
Yeah.
that you back into and it
Just
swaps out the
changes out
battery.
Yeah. And
Which
within
makes sense.
what?
2.5 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's interesting because like the Tesla chargers.
Correct.
You
So
gotta wait
within,
in
Backed up
line.
and everybody had to wait.
within
in line.
2.5 minutes, you're charged up, you're ready to go.
Well, my big thing was, current events was Tesla got put into all data finally.
Oh, okay.
Into what?
All data, so like the
Oh,
A resource for looking
yes.
stuff up.
Okay.
So it's like a massive resource for every automotive company or every car out there. Tesla finally gave that information out.
Right, because they didn't want to give it out. There's always a fight between manufacturers and independent garages trying to make them release the information.
Right.
And after a certain year, they have to start releasing it.
Okay.
Not all of it, but a lot of it, so that these independents can actually work on the cars. Otherwise, you'd be forced always going to a dealer.
Dealership.
But let's face it, the Tesla that's got 400 volts, you touch two wires together that
Boom.
you shouldn't be,
Right.
bad things are going to happen.
And that's one thing I'm constantly talking to them about is electric vehicles because they are going to be working on them.
Yeah.
Yes.
They ain't going away. They
No.
may be further away someday, but right now they are going to be in the thick of
There'll
it,
be some form of it.
and they need to realize that they have to work on them. So that's where we'll try and keep bringing up some of the new topics and different things.
Yeah.
And then again, the soft skills, professionalism. We always talk to them, especially those that are working.
Mhm.
Okay. The day of the dirty, greasy mechanic are gone. They need to realize that. They need to realize these cars, people don't want to get in their car and have fingerprints and different things.
Right.
So it's a lot of little stuff, and even how you talk to the manager or if you have to talk to a customer. A lot of them now have to do short videos or different things for the customers. When you take it to the dealer, that's how they communicate with the customer. They actually take pictures and show the bad parts. So I have to learn how to deal with all this and do it in a proper manner.
Customer service.
Right?
Exactly. So whether they like it or not, that's part of their job now,
Right.
and they need to learn how to deal with it.
And I think that skill also is important to communicate to our students. I mean, they're all working adults, so that's what I tell them. We're all adults here.
They
Okay,
don't,
you're
they don't
here to learn
realize it
English.
yet, but
Well,
they're.
we're pretty much the same here, and
Yeah.
maybe you're even doing a little better. But is the customer service, but the professionalism as a student when they come into school, to be on time, We have, go over the tools list. We have tools too that they need to
Dress
bring and
code,
have.
stuff
Yeah,
of that sort.
The phone etiquette, just all those little things. And so we'll put up our board of expectations, not classroom, but community expectations. Just to be polite, if we get in a discussion or somebody doesn't agree, we're not gonna bite each other's head off
Mhm.
or wind
Right.
up
Yep,
walking
yep.
out.
Right, no, and I think disagreement sometimes is good
Yes,
Oh,
But-
100%.
if they can handle it,
you're right.
okay? There's certain ways to handle it, and you gotta make sure that they don't get defensive over it and stuff, and just learn there is different point of views. I would agree with all that. Okay, safe place to learn. With us, they all have to wear safety glasses. Anytime we're working in the shop, doing anything, everybody's gotta have safety glasses.
Safety glasses, proper clothes, proper shoes.
Yeah, we just reinforced a new rule. They used to wear sweatpants,
And pajamas.
then it was going to pajamas.
And slippers.
So it's like,
My
okay,
goodness.
so this last semester, we just said, oh, no more sweatpants, no more pajamas. I don't want to have to say whether that's sweatpants, pajamas, or whatever.
Exactly.
The other bad thing is it is unsafe. If there happens to be a little bit of a flame or a spark or something, those materials can engulf in flames much sooner than regular work clothes.
Right.
So we're trying to let them know this is unacceptable. Okay.
And in the industry, it's unacceptable too.
Right.
I mean, it's.
Yeah. So the biggest problem is getting them to keep the safety glasses on.
Yes, I walk in every lab.
Back of the forehead, on top of the head, every which way except in front of their
I
eyes.
call them all out on it. And,
It's like our masks that we had to wear.
Right,
yeah.
right. They'd wear it, but it'd be down here, and it's like, okay, that's doing you a lot of good.
But it's like, and I tell the students with safety glasses, it's not what you're doing, it's what the person next to you is doing.
Yeah.
You know? 'Cause
Yeah, and
stuff comes flying across.
the best story I have, I was working in the shop. It was with students, and they were doing a strut, which is like a shock, and they were taking it apart, and there's a top piece on there, and that top piece went flying. And I had students working inside a car, and they had the window open, actually went through the window and hit the kid in the head.
Mhm.
Gosh.
And I said, it doesn't matter if you're in the car, out of the car, things happen.
Yes.
My other best story, my very first class I taught was manual transmissions, and we were taking them apart, and the student took his tools out, and he took a claw hammer out, which is used by carpenters to remove nails and stuff. And I'm like, no, we don't use that in automotive. We use ball peen hammers. They're round, there's no claw, we have no nails, there's no reason to use that. No sooner than I turned around, he whipped back and hit the kid right here with the hammer. Luckily, he had his glasses on, helped some of it, but all I kept thinking was, wow, that claw hammer would have been sticking out of his forehead.
Wow.
So ever since then, I make sure safety glasses and you just don't know. Things happen. It doesn't even have to be because they're students. It just happens because that's the field we're in.
Yeah.
And I try to explain to them with their eyes, that's something that you damage in most cases you can't repair. Other things nowadays, sometimes you can repair some of it or whatever, but they need to be responsible and make sure that they don't have to worry about getting hurt. And besides the fact, we're in the shop all over the place with all these students, we got to rely on them doing what they're supposed to be doing while I'm working over here. So we can't, watch everyone. So we've got to make it a safe place for learning.
Correct. And then failure, failure is expected, we work in an industry that you need to be 100% right 100% of the time. And I tell students that. But on the other hand, how do we get to that point? By failing, by taking that step back. What did we do wrong in the lab? Why did this not work? how can I prevent this from happening again? And like I said, it's not just, I failed on this one thing. You can take that failure on the one thing and relate it to a failure on something else, or to prevent that failure on something else. It's take that step back. You know what? This is the first time I'm doing it. I need to go slow. We're at school. Who cares if it takes an hour to do a 5-minute jump?
They got to look at it as not as a failure, but a learning experience.
Right.
And that you didn't fail, you just need to do it again.
Right.
So that you are better at it. Although I have a student now that no matter what happens, he's never wrong. He always did it right. He never did it wrong, and he's just high on his horse, and he's working in a shop, and he's going to get knocked down eventually, because that's the worst attitude you can have going into a shop, that I know how to do everything and I'm that good and all this other stuff. And you're going to learn the hard way.
Yes.
Yeah, we have some not aggressive, or can't think of the word.
Too confident?
No, but anyway, they're aggressive ESL students, again, where they've decided what their learning abilities are, and also where they should be and what classes they shouldn't be in, so then you'll get a lot of pushback, because we were allowed to change them around the third week of classes, which was last week. So in other words, they thought they should be in a higher level. So, just because they thought that doesn't necessarily pan out.
And now they're going to struggle.
Well, yeah, or they come into the next class too with that type of attitude.
Right.
That they know everything. So it's not fair to the other students.
Our students have to go through an intro class, every one of them. And there's a decent majority of them that think that it's a waste of time, because it's basically how to learn tools, how to look things up, all the basic stuff you need. And they just like, oh, well, I know all this already, which obviously they don't know everything.
Correct.
And they just need to step back and realize that. And sometimes it takes a while before they realize that,
Even just taking it as a refresher.
Right.
Say, this is just a refresher. Okay. You know how to use tools. Well, someone next to you does not.
And I guarantee you there are tools that they've never seen before that they don't know how to use.
Correct.
Right.
So it's just,
there's a tool for everything in the automotive
Right.
industry.
Exactly.
There really is.
Right.
And I like to pull them out. I'm like, what is this? And they're all sitting there looking at me. Like, oh.
But also empathy for the students that are struggling, having,
Give them that.
extra time, or, tell them to stay after class or come before class and we can go over more of it. Or like I've said before, I've even had, really good students that understand it, that are very good working with others, and I'll pair them together.
Yeah.
And sometimes that will help bring that student up higher and encourage him and bring up his confidence level, so that he gets it. Right, exactly.
Just because it took you a little bit longer, that's fine. We're here to learn.
Yep.
Go over
And keep it interesting.
Yes.
That's a big thing with these students. They will get so bored so fast.
Straight on their phone.
Yeah, that's exactly what they do.
And I've been taking my lecture out into the lab, because if I just sit there and lecture, show pictures, and explain it to them, and we're explaining the same thing, but because 12 different manufacturers call it something different, they're lost. Well, now you go out in the lab,
Right.
You show 5 different cars. We're talking about the same thing, but this manufacturer calls it this. This manufacturer calls it this. A little bit different, and you just work your way down. And I find them to be more interested.
Right.
They're not just sitting there bored out of their mind in a lab,
Mhm.
or bored out of their mind in a classroom.
Right.
Take them to the lab, because that's where they want to be. I mean, let's face it, most automotive students want to work with their hands.
Right.
They want that hands-on.
So in the past, I've only been here a year and a half, but in prior classes, I didn't have access. Well, we had access, but it was limited to computers. So the first class, I did get them going on their laptops, so they, how to go get them and then use them. This class is like wonderful. I'm in the lab, So they have their computer, so they're already, get them onto Blackboard where they can be practicing again if I give them discussion questions. So now they're practicing communicating with, and they do love it. They get on it. And Thursday I bought them, I managed to find them real cheap earphones. So now we can plug in our earphones and practice our audio, so it does make a difference rather than listening to me. And that's why I told them, you don't want to listen to me talk for 3 hours.
No.
So we're going to get up and do things, and you're going to participate, it's good you participate, then get them up to the board, have them explain, break out into groups. We have the poster boards, where we can go from station to station. They can work as a group, 1, 2, 3s at those particular assignments. So to keep it all moving, because the sitting doesn't work.
No.
Right, it's tough. I like if I do lectures, I like it being back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I like getting the students engaged, and if I do see someone kind of texting on the phone or something like that, I'll ask him, okay, what's this about? And they'll get the subtle hint without having to make a big deal about it,
Right.
and they put the phone away. Some of my other stuff that I have is interactive, where it's actually questions, and it's things that they got to do in there. So they have to answer the questions.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll even spill them up in the groups and
Yeah.
make it into a little competition,
Yeah.
just
They
for,
like that.
right, exactly, bragging
Well,
rights.
So I like using YouTube for a lot of stuff. Like, I'll use it to show a procedure of how to do a fuel pump in a car. Okay. But the problem is, YouTube, anybody can put it out there. This is how you do it. So I like to find the ones that I disagree with, that they did it the wrong way, and show it to the students. We'll watch it. So the one that sticks out was doing a fuel pump. The person, the proper way is to drop the gas tank. The person in this
Right.
video took the back seat out, they took a cutting tool out, and they cut the floor of the vehicle out to gain access to the fuel pump. And I like showing them that. And I'm like, do you guys think anything's wrong with this? Because now we talk about danger, because let's face it, we're cutting the floor, we're shooting sparks, gasoline. They don't mix. So yes, you can do it, but it's not the right way, all the dangers. But then they get interested. Like they watch it and they're like, yeah, I probably wouldn't do it that way, or I probably wouldn't do it that way, but that's okay. So
And that's what you got to do. Like I said, over the years, you have to find ways of engaging with them. And it's got to be stuff that they're used to. You got to try and incorporate it the best you can, and show them what works and what doesn't work to keep them interested. If you keep trying to preach the old stuff, it just doesn't
like
work.
I said, they like seeing things get destroyed. I mean, you show videos of stuff blowing up, they're into it,
Yeah.
So
Okay.
keep it interesting.
Station rotation. So what we do is we'll have different stations with different things at them. So this way everybody's busy, and then once they finish, let's say it takes a half hour or something, they can rotate to the next one. So now they're doing something else. Or if somebody finishes that one and somebody finishes here, they can switch. So you constantly keep them working on different things rather than trying to do the same thing with everybody. Sometimes we run into it where maybe we don't have enough of that one thing for everybody, unless you want to make groups of 4 or 5 people, which then 3 people are standing there doing nothing and 2 are doing all the work. So we like to try and make these different rotations and move them around. Random groups. I got to a point because certain people were always picking the same people.
Yep.
I put all their names in a bag and I pick it out. That's who your partner is today.
Yeah.
You got to learn to work with different people.
Well, yeah, because there's people in life that you are not going to like, and you have to figure out how to work with them.
Yeah.
So you got to figure out the real life situations, even if it's just not with the car, it's just how to deal with.
Right. You're not going to live with them. You just got to work with them for a little bit.
Yeah.
Random groups, case studies. Sometimes we'll talk about cars that we've had that we've fixed. There's a lot of that stuff out there too that you can access where you're looking at, okay, I had this problem and this is what I did. It didn't fix it. Then I went and did this and this is how I found the problem. So you kind of give them ideas on certain things, that there is information out there, even on through the regular looking up of the cars and stuff. There's different things. They're called bulletins, tech bulletins, where maybe it was a hard problem and they've seen it enough where they'll actually publish it in with all the other information, and you could look those up and maybe get a good idea of what's going on before you even start on it. So there's a lot of stuff in there. They need to look at those things.
Do your research.
Right.
Be prepared.
Which again makes it real life relatable examples. Again, we'll give them from when we were in the field and stuff, and we ran into this, and we ran into the same problems, or we found a way of getting around it.
And then the shared data analysis. It's when we're done with the lab, let's talk as a group. How did you come up with where you got? What was your route? Every group's gonna look at it different. There's no really right or wrong way to get to the correct answer, right? Just to give you different ideas, to have them, and let the students bounce it out of their head. Well, I did this, or I did that, or why did you do this?
Right. Lead the discussion, get it going, and then hopefully they'll carry it away and they'll just start bringing it, and you kind of just sit and listen to them.
Yep.
And let them bounce the ideas off their heads. They may come up with ideas that we never thought of.
Correct.
So then, that is a good idea, and that's, again, how you learn and keep advancing. I have these discussions the next day after they're done working. Today I'll have sit down and they'll tell me stuff because they're working on 2023s.
Yeah.
I've never worked on 2023s. They're looking at 2024s now. And they come up with things telling me, oh yeah, this does this. Okay, I never knew that. So I learn a lot from them on all the newer things that keep going.
The students, like when we bug cars, the stuff students mess up becomes the best bugs for future classes. Because I'd be like, oh, I never would have thought of doing that. And they tried doing something that obviously wasn't right, but it caused this other problem that, perfect, now I have a new bug for them for the next class to try to figure out. So students come up with the best bugs in the vehicles for the lab unintentionally.
Unintentionally, yes.
And it's a great learning process. So because they'll come up to me and like, oh, it's this. I'm like, how did you come up with that? I'm like, well, I did this or that. I'm like, oh, just connecting that caused this, which now completely took you down the wrong path,
Yeah, and that's something to keep in mind. I know with the learning curves, or mistakes, or the understanding isn't there until you see the mistakes and then to have the conversson as to, well, how did that happen?
Yeah.
But then it helps you become a better instructor.
Oh, 100%.
Correct.
100%. Like I said, the best bugs I put in cars are stuff I learned from kids messing them up.
And unfortunately, the students don't have the critical thinking and the mechanical skills that we used to see in them. They don't have as much that they get in high school.
Yeah.
Dad can't work on the car at home anymore like you used to.
But it's also COVID. The kids we have right now pretty much didn't have to do anything in high school except show up.
Yeah, but even before COVID, I've seen the changes over the years. COVID isolated them more, but prior to that, even it's just they just don't do as much. When our bicycle broke, we would try fixing it. Their bicycle breaks, throw it away and buy a new one.
Yeah.
So it's a lot with a lot of things now as we become throw things away rather than try to fix them. Yeah. And that plays a big part in these students over the years. I mean, I got a son that's 24, and he never watched me around the house a lot. He bought his own house now, and now he's calling me, asking me, okay, I wish I watched, but how did you do that?
Because he called a repair service.
Right, they find out how much it was.
And he don't want to be paying that kind of money, and unfortunately, they don't understand that till after the fact. Collaborate the concept, where basically they're trying to put that map together, but the night before they're all studying by themselves, and then they come in the next day, okay, put your ideas together and come up with a game plan. Okay, now let's go do it. Role play, That could be with customers. Like I said, I made them in the room, make them make the videos, and then we put the videos up to see what did they do and how does it look and did you do the right thing? Did you do too much? You know, so you kind of give them the ideas and let them work off of each other.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to do, the video with the restaurant, you know, one's the server, one's the customer.
Yeah,
And then let them see it aside from, like, they encouraged to go out into community, you
And
know,
talk.
and then learn,
Yeah.
and speak. But it's really funny if you can do it in the class. They get a kick out of it, you know, everyone starts laughing. So that's a nice idea.
Right, and it's entertaining and they're learning something and they
Right.
don't even
It's a
think
game and
about
it's
that.
fun and time goes
Yeah.
by quick and
Yeah.
yeah, they learn something, right?
Freedom to South. I, again, will not just give them answers. I'll make them struggle a little bit.
I will answer with a question.
Right. I'll ask them the question
And
where
get
they
so-
gotta come up
They
with
get so
it.
frustrated, but.
Sometimes it's leading them.
Yeah,
You just
it's
lead them
leading
with the questions to get to it. Oh, okay, I guess, yeah. So you wanna give them, you want them to be able to solve it. You don't always wanna come up over there and give them the answer and, okay, well, how did I get that or how did I do that?
Because what's gonna happen when I'm not here?
Exactly.
You know?
They have to know how to fight.
Yeah,
I saw that last semester when I gave the final, so I had them all prepared and, you know, throughout those 16 weeks, you know, we put together notebooks and then they had references for grammar in there and, you know, from alphabet to nouns to vowels to so on and so forth. And only there was two. As I walked around because they had to take a paper, they didn't do it online. As I navigated the classroom and observed, there was only two that I saw that it clicked.
Yeah.
Oh, let me go look it up.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
and make sure and put all the connections together. So I was really happy
Yep.
with
Yep.
that. But I
Right,
had to
well, that's why
remind
you come up
everybody
with
else.
different ways, different
Correct.
people, it all of a sudden makes sense to them, you
Yeah.
know? Internet is not always your friend, we've been talking
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
You can't just dismiss it because they're going to use it. You might as well face fact. I'm not gonna sit there and fight with them against it,
No.
but teach them to use it the right way.
Mhm.
Teach them what the good part is and try to stay away from the bad stuff. Understand why we're doing it more than once. Repetition makes perfect, and then they understand. And then, especially in the automotive field, you may have followed the book exactly as it says, but then you've seen, well, I didn't have to do that. I didn't have to do this. So the next time you do it, maybe then you could start taking a few shortcuts. And the more you do it, the quicker you get, and you find that I can just get around that if I have this tool or whatever. And that's what you learn. But for the first time, you follow that thing exactly.
And then you gotta be patient. That's the biggest thing. Be patient. You know?
My wife will not stand around me if I'm working on cars.
Yeah.
But I've also learned to, sometimes something just ain't going right, you walk away from it.
Correct.
10 minutes later, you come back and boom, it just works.
Yep.
So you gotta
Exactly.
learn, yeah.
Oh, I
there's-
can get real
Be
confused.
patient.
On a rough night.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, then you
Yeah.
just need to,
Like, okay, now teachers are confused.
Take that step
We gotta back it up.
Yep.
yes. Shows we're human.
Yeah. Teach the teacher. Like I said, that's
The students sometimes give me stuff that I don't know,
correct.
you know, so I'm not saying I'm almighty, I'm not saying I know everything. Again, we make mistakes.
Yep.
And I come right out and tell them that. If you think there's something a better way or you know something, feel free to tell me. I
Not gonna offend me.
no, not at all. Again, provide examples from experience,
Been there, done that.
when we're out in the field, when we made mistakes, when we did things. And a big one again that I think that a lot of students are lacking is that critical thinking. Come up with games to make them figure out
Yep.
how to get there, how to do
And
this.
make it fun. Make it fun. so they get
That's,
engaged.
yeah, I mean, you know, I tell students, you know, you go to school and it's not gonna be the best thing in the world. It's not like going to the movie. It's like going to work, okay? There's a certain part of it you're not gonna like. But at the same token, as teachers, we can try and make it as less grueling as possible. But there's a certain part where I'll tell them, okay, we got to do this. Maybe you don't like this part of it, but we got to do this, and then we can get to the fun part.
Yep.
There's just no way around it sometimes, and they realize that. So if you break it up and you do different things, you can get them to engage and to buy in on what you're saying. Okay, create students buy-in. Again, that's just showing them what you're telling them works.
Yeah.
You know,
it's done and why it works.
it builds the students' confidence. Okay, by them thinking what they're doing is actually working.
And make them think.
Make them think. That's the difficult one, but it's got to be done. Teaching ways to a solution, not the answer. So that goes back to where we're asking questions, not just giving them the answer. Show them they know the answer. They just got to draw it out of them.
And I do that a lot. I won't give them the answer. I'll just ask them that question, and they'll sit there and they'll think, and then they'll just start throwing things out. I'm like, And a lot of times, like when they get the answer, I just walk away. And then I'll come back in a couple of minutes and I'm like, so we figured it out? And I'm like, oh yes, this, that, and that, whatever. I'm like, oh, you got to do it on your own.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
So.
Help build communication, soft skills, and professionalism. You know, even how they talk to us.
Yeah.
Sometimes, hey, I'm not talking to you until you address me the right way or whatever it may be. Also, if they don't have glasses on, I just say, I can't hear you, I can't talk to you.
I can't see you.
I'll walk away, and then they realize it, and they put them on, okay, now we can talk.
Say, can you see through your safety glasses? Because I can't.
Yeah. Students enjoy your class equals retention. So if they like coming to school, but they need to also understand, again, it's not always going to be fun. There's a certain aspect of it that you're here to learn. It's not here to play games.
Right, and every class is different. And that's what I told them, because sometimes they'll talk about previous instructors, and I'm like, well, we're all different. Just
Correct.
like you guys are all different,
Correct.
we're all different.
And
So look for the pieces that you're gonna learn from.
And that's with me, because like I said, worked in the industry so long and I'm just freshly out of it. I'm gonna teach you how to fix cars. What you need to know to fix that car. I can teach you the principles, but if we sit and talk about the principles, you are going to be bored out of your mind.
Yeah.
I've been in a lot of conferences where you sit in classes and all this stuff, and it may be stuff that I've seen a lot of times, but like I tell them, I always pick up one thing that might be new. And it also reminds me what it's like when my students are sitting on the other side.
Bored out of your mind.
And they've got someone talking to you for 45 minutes or an hour, and it reminds me,
Yep.
okay, I need to make sure I'm not doing that, because I know this guy's boring the heck out of me.
Exactly. Coming to that? Yeah. We've talked
Questions,
about,
comments, or I think we've been
Appreciate it.
interacting so much.
no,
I think we've gotten ideas from both of them, all of us.
That's what I try to turn my lectures into, a conversation.
Yep.
Right? Because the
Yeah.
conversation makes it go, everyone interested, interactive.
And it doesn't become boring with you just sitting there, blah, blah, blah. What was it, the
If I can sit
sweet
there and talk for 4 hours, that's fine.
Yeah.
But you're gonna.
the teacher from Peanuts.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah.
Perfect. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm glad you
Think
we're
enjoyed it.
done?
Hopefully you got something out of it.
Yeah.
I did. Do you allow students to tour the automotive department?
Yeah.
Because the automotive, so do you offer tours, like for interested students?
Yeah, I mean, I know like the high schools, they
They do
come
it and
through
stuff. It's just,
randomly.
it's hard for us to do
Safety.
it. Well, safety, all they gotta worry about is glasses. As long as they got glasses on, that's not an issue. We'll keep them to a certain thing, but it's just getting someone to do the tour.
I know administration brings people.
They will do, but I would,
A lot of times,
encourage it.
one
I
of us
mean-
is free, we'll sit and talk and go through this stuff.
it might spark a bug in
Yeah.
somebody in your
Well,
classes.
yeah, because they're looking for jobs. They're here and maybe they just took a job because they have to have a job. but it's not really their goal job.
Yeah.
So we haven't talked about that yet. That's what
Right.
we're doing the next couple of weeks, so what do you really want to do?
Yeah.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
No, thank you.
It's great.
Thank you.
I'm glad I came.
We're glad you came too.
Yes.